That's right, Dave.
He knows my language.
Sure. I'll check it right now. All right, sorry about that. A few things happening in the building. So I invited the co-founders of Burbank for Armenia to come talk today about their work, about some of what they're doing, and we're going to open it up for questions if you have any questions. But thank you both for making time for this. These are phenomenal people with amazing energy and doing good things. So I'm simply going to turn it over to them.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate that. That's an introduction. Well, my name is Romek Hagopian. One of the co-founders for Burbank for Armenia.
And I'm Lucina Simonian, just Lucy. And we're very happy to be here. Thank you, Brandon, for inviting us.
We really appreciate that. And today we're going to talk about Burbank for Armenia and how this organization came about and all the fun details. And also Brandon's involvement. He's a big part of us. You know, as amazing as he believes we are, we feel like it's a reflection of him as well. So Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint real quick. Let me just download that. Where did I? Oh, there it is. Oh, that's not it.
I'm going to go grab my coffee real quick. Be right back.
Sure. Where is that screen? Is that it?
I think so.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm going to share the screen real quick. And
Are you able to see it or not yet? Yeah, they can see it.
Okay, great. Can you guys see the screen real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, so Burbank for Armenia is an organization that started during the time of the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia during that time. And, you know, we knew it became a national thing. And for me, prior to Burbank for Armenia, you know, I had a really good understanding what being an Armenian was, but it was a lot of, you know, my girlfriend Lucy inspiring me and showing me, because, you know, she has a closer connection to Armenia because she lived in the country for a very long time. And we saw what was happening over there, and there was this conflict going on across the seas. And, you know, me and Dr. Armand Nagakanyan, he's currently on the Burbank Unified School District School Board. You know, we spoke about an idea a year prior when we were doing a Blue Ribbon project in the community to, you know, symbolize and say thank you to all of our essential workers. And, you know, we talked about starting an Armenian organization, and during that time, we're like, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's never been done before in the city of Burbank. On that level, on the ANCA of Burbank does amazing, wonderful things, but it's different to get the leadership throughout the community of the city of Burbank to come together for an organization like this. And, you know, it was, when the time presented itself, we're like, we have to do this, we have to get together, you know. So what we did was we assembled a board. You know, for us, it's wonderful because we have such wonderful, diverse community leaders that came together for this cause. And the mission of the organization is to educate people and generate awareness about the culture of Armenians in Burbank. And, you know, there's always a misconception that people view, you know, and from what I've heard is, you know, Armenians, you know, they're very flashy cars or they have a lot of money, and that might be like a small percentage of what people see out there, but majority, 99% of Armenians are just wonderful citizens that pay their taxes, they work really hard, and they love their families. They're warm, wonderful, inviting people. And, you know, for us, it was just, you know, seeing what we can do to educate not only the community of Burbank, but at the same time, invite Armenians to get more involved in the community, because, you know, being 16% of the population, Armenians don't really get involved in the politics, you know, and a lot of volunteering or, you know, involved in nonprofits. So we felt like, you know, we can possibly be that conduit for them, you know, and we, working with so many organizations throughout the community, you know, we want to show that we're not just here for Armenia, you know, we're here for the entire community of Burbank, and doing what we can with the resources we have to help as many organizations as possible. And that's why we're here, you know. And for me, it was during that time I saw what Lucy was going through, and she was just so emotionally distraught because her younger brother was threatening to be, you know, pulled into war. And, you know, it's a different world out there. Third world countries operate very differently than first world countries, you know. And, you know, she was in tears every day, and I kind of lost my mind and called everybody in the community and said, hey, let's put this together, it's time. And, you know, that's how Burbank for Armenia was born. And I would have to say thank you to Brandon Johnson for being a part of that. You know, he was part of the founding organization, you know, and we've been doing wonderful things since, and we want to go ahead and share that with you. So we're going to get into the committees that we've built that focus on specific projects throughout the community. And, but before we get into that, this is the executive board that we currently put together. You know, we have a lot of wonderful community leaders. You know, we have our former president of the school board, Armenian, you know, ANC chair, Sarkis Simonian. Of course, you see Brandon's handsome face right there. You know, Mary Mosesians and Mary Honzoyan from the city of Burbank, Albert Hernandez. If you don't know Albert Hernandez, he is such a prominent figure in the city of Burbank. We work together on the Family Promise of Verdugo's board. He's executive director. He's doing amazing things for the homeless in the community. You know, we have Cosmic and of course Gloria Salas from Zampa. She's incredible as well. And of course us. So getting into the committees, we built a civic engagement.
Wait a minute. Have to go in here.
Did I go too fast?
What happens now?
Where's your picture? Can you see yourself?
We have a new person
No,
who's trying to get
because it's
himself.
a thing that projected.
Yeah.
Ken, I'm gonna
Special
mute.
project.
I'm gonna
I've
mute
been on
you,
these
Ken.
before.
There. All right.
Okay, great. So jumping into the Civic Engagement Committee. So we developed this committee to deal with anything that has to do with, you know, the community on a civic level. What we've recently been working on, we did a project. We worked with the city of Burbank and also the ANC of Burbank invited us to join them on their April 24th Armenian Genocide Remembrance Ceremony yesterday. And they invited us to bring our own wreath, which was really nice in remembrance. And so Burbank for Armenia, for our project, we reached out to the city of Burbank and said, hey, can you light up the City Hall lights with Armenian flag colors? And they said, absolutely, it'd be great. So went last night, took pictures of the one you see there. You know, we took a picture of some of our board members there, and of course, Toma Takahashi. She blessed us with being involved. And of course, Brandon in the background, that beautiful purple shirt. And it was great because Congressman Schiff held a press conference. He announced that President Joe Biden officially recognized the story of the Armenian tragedy as genocide, you know, which is something that's important for our culture because, you know, we have stories, you know, to deny something like that is just absolutely absurd. What my grandparents saw, you know, anyone who denies anyone of something that's a big part of their identity, I think is wrong, you know, especially when you have the proof, you know, we have the stories, we have the grandparents, we have the scars, we can prove it. So we were so honored to be part of that historic day. So, and that's what the Civic Engagement Committee gets really involved with, you know, a lot more on the civic side. And we work directly with the ANC Burbank. I mean, they've been here forever, and Sarkis has done a wonderful job with that organization. And him allowing us to partner with him is, you know, for us, it's just an honor. And then we also have a Armenian Business Committee, and this is just a way of us showing the Armenian Business Committee and community that, you know, we're here, we're going to highlight your business. We're just going to say thank you for operating in the community of Burbank. And the reason why we're doing this is just to motivate the community because Armenians really don't get involved, you know, and they always feel like, you know, people in the city are just not going to listen. They're not going to care about what we think. We're just such a small minority. We're a small voice. So for us to just, you know, showcase this, just to say thank you for just opening your business here, it's just, you know, and just a place where they can come and we can show them that, you know, there's all these wonderful people that came together of diverse cultures and backgrounds that will care about Armenian issues and hopefully influences them to care about not only Armenian issues, but other issues as well. And then Lucy is going to talk about the Youth Engagement Committee.
So we have another committee, it's the Youth Engagement Committee, and we're trying to bring more youth and them being more involved in the community. And this is the project that we were doing, and we had young artists participating for Burbank Armenia Public Art Project. And the whole idea is to submit mural proposal that is later on going to go on one of the walls of an Armenian business. Artists do not need to be Armenian, but the business that is going to go on the wall is going to be Armenian. And one thing that me and Romy, because we were so involved in the city of Burbank in different organizations like me, Zonta, and him in the chamber and in Family Promise, we didn't see any other Armenians participating with us. So we did see this disconnect between Burbank and between Armenians being part of it. So we do want to inspire them and to tell them, hey, Burbank is welcoming, but you need to step up too, and you need to be more involved. And that's how we're trying to do it. And you see some of the submissions of the murals. We haven't decided which one, but by June, it will be up on the wall.
Yeah, and just to add to that, what you said was really wonderful. I had a conversation with Councilman Nick Schultz a couple of days ago, and with Burbank for Armenia, it's, when it comes to issues like recognizing specific, measures or recognizing specific things that the ANC is trying to champion, when we need people to call into city council, it's like, Tamal Takahashi has been one of our biggest champions. She's been literally such a great voice for us, but because, she's wonderful. She believes in, others people's causes and trying to champion that. And that's what we need more of, but we also need more Armenians to show up, and we feel like hopefully we'll be able to inspire more Armenians from doing that, because being Armenian, and I see people driving up the street with their flags on, I appreciate the passion, but let's just, let's take that energy and just redirect it to something that we feel is going to be more effective, like getting involved in city council meetings and getting involved in organizations like this and other organizations throughout the community. And we just feel like it'll just be more constructive. So we're just trying to give people a second option.
Mm-hmm. This is Congregation Committee, and Brandon is our chair. Thank you, Brandon, for everything that you're doing. And thank you to your congregation, people on this call. You gave us your parking lot, and that is a big help. What we're doing here, we're partnering with Zonta, and Gloria is the area director for Zonta Club of Burbank. And we were collecting toiletries for YWCA, people who have been affected by domestic violence and had to flee. So we were making the small kits that has, shampoos and conditioner and toothbrush. And you were very kind enough to provide your parking for that. With Congregation Committee, we're trying to bring more awareness of the different congregations we have in Burbank, and also the Armenian congregation, and telling them, hey, you can be more involved, because churches are a big part of our community, and sometimes they're overlooked, but definitely they shouldn't be, because we do go to church every Sunday, we are part of it, and these people are residents of Burbank. That's why I feel like Congregation Committee is an important part of it. And thank you, Brendan, for chairing it.
And also Zonta, Gloria texted me and said, tell Brandon and the congregation, thank you so much for, what you did for Zonta. And she's truly grateful. And it was a fun day. It was a really fun day.
It was fun. And thanks to all of you for doing this.
Oh, pleasure. And last, we have our diversity committee. And this is a committee that, we developed to focus on how are we going to work with other organizations that are non-Armenian organizations, and how are we going to help them and champion their struggles, and that's why we built a diversity committee. And we recently just ended this Read Across Burbank campaign we did with all the elementary schools in the community of Burbank. Dr. Arman Agakanian is, he's on the diversity committee, and he was nice enough to set up all the conversations with the USD. And we talked to all the elementary schools, and they opened their doors on those specific dates on March 5th, 12th, and 19th to donate specific books that they needed, and we had a great time. A lot of great books were donated for a worthy cause, because one thing that we know, and I was ignorant of, was how much the libraries lack in books that promote diversity, teaching people about different cultures. So it was really great to kind of dive into that world and really learn about it. And so it was a lot of fun. So we're looking at possibly doing that again next year, making this an annual event, and also tapping into the high schools and the junior high schools and seeing how we can help out. And we're going to have an upcoming project. We're going to do a virtual conversation with some panelists. It's going to be consistent panelists that are going to come from different diverse cultures and races. And and we're going to have a conversation about a respectful conversation about diversity and what it means to them and their racial struggles. And we all struggle. Doesn't matter if you're white, Armenian, Asian, Black, etc. Like we always feel like we're there's some type of stigma about our cultures, and we want to talk about that. We want to talk about how what can we do to bring people together, just to help people realize that we're all human. We all go through struggles. It just might look different on the outside, but deep down, mechanically we operate the same way. So and that's what we're trying to bring, and the diversity community is trying to champion that and work with other organizations. So it should be fun, something to definitely look forward to. But other than that, that is all. That is the presentation we had today for Burbank for Armenia. Thank you guys so much for having us here. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, the event that you had for Zonta, thank you very much for sharing all that information. Like the toiletries and whatnot, are you guys gonna be doing something like that again? Is that gonna be an annual event or something more than that?
We collaborate with YWCA a lot at Zonta, so yes, definitely we'll have more. We had sweater drive during winter time, and then we had toiletry drive. So we'll do something else again.
Okay, so like you're thinking quarterly, or maybe
we usually try to do it quarterly, but as an annual event, definitely the toiletry drive will be an annual event. I don't know what is the next one coming up. We still have some toiletry kits that we're still assembling together, so we're not completely done with it. So that is ongoing, and then once we have our next one next quarter, we will let you know.
Okay, I know that Brandon's probably mentioned this to you. We have a lot of space in our church building. Both the parking yard is not large, but the storage space too, for keeping items like that.
Thank you so much. That's good to know, because our garages have been doing that function.
So I drive a Chevy Camaro, and I fit 50 bags in there. So I'm gonna call GM and tell them that's a great. Yeah. You can store a lot of bags in that car. No, but it was great. Like we got the bags, we got them sent over, we delivered them to the YWC. They were so thankful.
And thank you for that suggestion.
And also a big thank you to Brandon he's the chair of the congregation committee for Burbank for Armenia. And his leadership has been amazing, and what he's been doing for us. Thank you, Brandon. And yeah, good. Sure.
Pamela?
I don't know who raised their Pamela. Oh, is it Pamela?
Yeah, I did. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for sharing that. So how many Armenian businesses are there in Burbank that you're aware of? Can you give a rough estimate, or?
We have a list of the Armenian organizations. I mean, maybe I can I think I had it on my desktop. Give me one sec.
Just curious.
No, it's right here. I have the Excel spreadsheet. So from what I'm looking at with Armenian last names, and I could be off on some of them, there's actually a lot. There's probably
that's the impression I have too.
Around 500.
No, it's about 1,000, I believe.
Wow, that's a big percentage.
About 1,000. Yeah, about 1,000 businesses, and I think there's over 7,000 businesses just in the community of Burbank, if I'm not mistaken. I believe so.
Wow.
About 1,000. Yeah.
Okay. I'd be curious to hear some of the interesting stories of how those businesses came about, how those families came to Burbank, how they opened the business, what they went through to get the business open. Now that they're in the community, how are they doing? And that would be really interesting to learn, I think, to have some of those stories.
That's a great idea. That's something that we can have the business committee champion. And yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
I think that would connect this idea of you know, this idea of minority owned businesses, I think to a lot of the community members sounds somewhat abstract, or like there's people over there, but hearing the personal stories of overcoming challenges or how they decided to go with that business, and you know, especially if they have, you know, are immigrants or their families are immigrants, you know, recently, that kind of thing would be really, I think, help connect the community together with personal stories of it's not just someone to buy stuff from. It's not just someone who works for our community, but somebody who's a part of our community, who are members of our community, who are integrated. You know, they're not just serving us like a business might serve people. I think that's really important to make that distinction, you know?
I think that's fantastic. We're gonna have a board meeting on Wednesday, so that's something that we'll definitely bring up. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it gives spaces to, I mean, it gives like it makes a connection, you know, with people.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
what you're trying to develop, and what, you know, we're trying to create this connectiveness within the community. It's, you know, that'd be wonderful to share.
No, I think it's wonderful, and I appreciate you guys sharing that, because, you know, we're still a very infant organization. You know, we did start just recently, just last October. So a lot of the projects that are going to be coming about is going to be coming from, you know, wonderful people like you, inspiring us to be like, hey, that's a great idea. We should do that.
Yeah,
thank you so much for that.
You got great coverage in the leader the other day, you know, so that's fantastic, and continue to do that, you know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And speaking of connection and personal stories, I'm wondering how involved the Armenian youth are, maybe in the high schools and middle schools, and how they could share their story. With the art project was an amazing way for them to do that, but other ways that they can share their stories, you know, being so hooked up to YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all these things, that might be ways to share. And on that note, are you working with the Burbank youth at all? Are there Armenian clubs in the high schools, and you know, how is that working?
The current youth center for the Armenian youth is at the ANCA Burbank. They actually have a youth center dedicated to them. I think it's a great conversation for us to bring Sarkis and his ANCA organization on board to have that conversation. And I can see this becoming a webinar, you know, and he'll have a lot more insight on that because he works directly with them. You know, our youth committee worked a little differently, but for him, he actually has a center that young people can come and, you know, after school for you know, for guidance, etc. So, and it's a beautiful facility, by the way. It's right here in Santa Anita in Burbank.
Yeah, I've been there once. It is really great. Because I think it'd be so great to hear from the youth, from their experiences, you know, in Burbank, if they're, you know, second, third generation, how they see growing up here as a second and third generation, if they're, you know, first generation, you know, so just kind of getting that kind of feel from them about, and then how do they feel like they're being integrated? Or do they feel like they're part of the community? Do they feel like they're apart from the community? That would be really interesting to hear from their perspective.
That would be great. I think that we can partner with the ANCA and put some type of event around that, because it'll be great to get a bunch of young people, see what their perspective is like, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to introduce some folks that joined us partway through. Ken is here, and then Varouj and Silva. Wanted to say hi to you guys.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yep, me too.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You're not including Glendale youth and Glendale organizations. In Glendale, we have lots of young people who can contribute to your association. Just not Burbank, but just including everybody else. At schools, we have committees that they can help each other and connect with you, do things together.
Right. No, absolutely. This is an organization that doesn't have borders. So for us, if we do have, you know, the youth in Glendale that would be interested in, because when we share, I share it to everybody. I share it to all the Glendale organizations, the Glendale ANCA, the Burbank ANCA. I share it all throughout the community. So our reach for our social media goes from Burbank to Glendale to Pasadena and around this area in this vicinity, you know, but we're open.
I think it's more because we're so new, and the leadership is from Burbank. Everyone you saw on the executive board, they're Burbank leadership, and there's so much need in Burbank. Sometimes
true.
we get very caught up in, oh, what does Family Promise need? What does Zonta need? You know, what do other organizations, what are the resolutions we need to pass in the city of Burbank? So sometimes we get caught up in this, you know, Burbank mentality,
Bubble, yeah.
and we're so new that, but it is a great idea to expand. Like YWCA is in Glendale. We love helping them. It is a great idea to try to connect other schools and include Glendale. I think that's something that we should definitely
Absolutely.
look at going forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing your story. And to continue to do that, because that's how it's going to build.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. Just to, you
Appreciate
know,
that.
to have these conversations. I think, I remember once Romig had someone ask, well, how come Armenians just come and open up businesses? Are they rich, or does the government pay them to do it?
Yeah.
And because Romig hasn't lived in Armenia, but I have, and coming from a third world country, I explained to him that it's just there's no opportunity there. People are very hardworking, and they all have higher education, but the opportunities are so limited that when they come to United States and there's so many opportunities, it's just about, you know, grabbing those opportunities and using resources that are available to everyone. I think being raised here, and I see that with Romig and his friends, you can't really see those opportunities because you were raised here and for you that's normal. But someone coming from a third world country and not seeing those opportunities, it's something that your eye catches right away, and you say, oh, so there's this program and there's this resource I can use. And that's mainly why I think we see so many Armenian businesses and people doing that. But they are missing on the civics part because they don't believe in government coming from the countries that they come from. The government over there does not listen to people. But here they need to understand that, no, you need to voice your opinion. You need to write that letter and that email to the city council because people will listen. And that's another gap that we're trying to bridge.
Bravo, I give you a credit because that's exactly what is happening. We came 42 years ago with young kids. We grew our kids here, and they went to the public schools and universities, and totally life was different than right now. Exactly, you mentioned the points that it's really you see as a grown up in here in the US, and people who come from outside are totally thinking differently, and they don't believe on governments. Exactly what you said. So that's the thing that we have to mention, that to the younger ones who are growing up here, and bringing them, especially churches, because they love to be part of it. They love to be staying Christians, and just praying God to help them be safe and sound.
Yes.
So many parents at middle age, they are very uncomfortable with the community. They don't feel safe with their kids there. The young people going out at nights or whatever organizations they are involved with. So that's really very important what you mentioned. Thank you.
Of course. And, you know, it's important for us to just to remember that, you know, like I was raised with Christian values, you know, I mean, a lot of things I've done are derived from my faith. And making sure those values, regardless of what faith you are, is, you know, I feel like my dad's generation, you know, the older generation, there's this level of respect and these values that you carried. You know, I feel like the youth nowadays is so different in the way we approach things. It makes me uncomfortable too sometimes. So it'd be like, you know, I wish they were a little more disciplined the way we were. But, you know, they grew up in a different generation. They grew up in a generation where they didn't have to go through the struggles that we had to go through. You know, we have to kind of champion that for them so they don't have to. We can shelter that from them. But I feel like, but educating them and reminding them what those values are, you know, I think is really important because they need that. They need that structure because can't tell you enough how many times our stepdaughter she'll just sit on TikTok for hours. And I'm like, that's just, you know, drives me wild. But, you know, the great thing is to remind our children that, you know, and the youth that, you know, where they came from, you know, how they got here, and the thousands of people that came before them that made their life possible today, you know. And that was something I was sharing with our stepdaughter was, so we had a conversation about how special she is, you know, and I drew a picture of her, which was a little line then her mom and dad, then their mom and dad, and their mom and their parents. And it went back, and I drew back like a 200 years. And she must have had over like 64 different grandmothers, 32 different, 64 different grandfathers. And that every single person had to grow up, you know, get a job, get married, have kids, survive through a darker time in order for that to sit on TikTok and have a good time, you know? So I was like, be thankful for that. But yeah.
I think that's a lesson that all of us could really appreciate. if we
Yeah,
look at it.
absolutely.
You know, I think it's so easy to take it for granted where we are. We are very, very fortunate to be here in the space
Absolutely.
we're in. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and let us know how we can help.
Yeah.
You know, the organizations that you're involved to, because for us it's all about community and making those connections and being helpful.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to be back in 5 minutes.
No, it's okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there anything we as First Christian Church could do to be more supportive of you? Or what are ways that we can support the work you're doing?
I think if you can share the flyers that we prepare usually for different for different committees, because Brandon, I know you would know what we're doing with the congregation committee, but when it comes to diversity or youth or civics engagement, if you have an email list that you usually share information with, we can do that, maybe share the flyer.
Anybody have any other questions?
Nope. Nope. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for you because you're reaching out both directions here. It's like to the Armenian congregation and
Yes.
yeah, it's like it's great and it's necessary. It's needed. It's needed within the community. Definitely.
There's a
Absolutely.
couple Armenian churches in Burbank, right? There's one
There's
up
only one, I think, no?
by Woodbury and
There's one by Woodbury. I know that's the biggest one right now, but other than that,
I don't
there's
know.
one
the
in
other
Edmond.
one.
yeah, I wonder if there's
Maybe.
any value of bringing congregations together. I mean, you mentioned your conversation you're going to have, by diverse conversation you're having. I'm wondering if it might be worth also having like a diverse, I don't know.
Yeah, that's an idea actually that Brandon had. I think that's a project that's coming up for the congregation committee. We're starting to contact them because Brandon was going through the list and we don't know how many of them are still pastor or, you know, the head of congregation. But that's a conversation we were thinking to have. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
That's great.
And so I have one last question, and I don't know if you can answer this, and
Sure.
I don't, because we're limited on time, but what is happening in Armenia right now? I know there were big headlines recently, but then as news usually happens, the next issue comes up. So can you fill us in on what's happening on the ground now?
So for Armenia, because of its location and being the only Christian country in that location, because we have Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Iran, all the countries that are surrounding it, none of them are Christian, even though we are very good friends, good neighbors with Iran. But Turkey and Azerbaijan are always, you know, trying to come forward and get more land. The only real ally we have is Russia, but also Russia operates in a way that it's a big country, so it thinks about itself first than any other countries. So after the war, people were devastated because they didn't have enough, you know, equipment to fight back. Turkey is part of NATO and it has a very strong military. It was hard to fight it, and unless Russia got involved, you know, there was no one else to protect Armenia. So people want democracy, but when it comes to government, I think government is very limited in terms of what they can actually do. Being a small country, underfunded, not having a strong military, they have to rely on the decision of bigger countries. So as of right now, they are looking at, they lost the war, that's first. Second, they lost part of the land that was in dispute. They didn't know if it was Armenia's or if it was Azerbaijan's. So they lost those lands and now they have an election coming up. And just as I said, people do not have a lot of faith in government. So now it's a fight over democracy or not. And we have to wait until June to see what happens. I have a small business that works with Armenian designers in Armenia. So I think we can help individuals because we know that these are real people and they're not the government specifically. They're real people that need to provide for their children and their parents. So what we are trying to do with any of our programs, just to go directly to the families and not go through the government and government programs. But it is a little bit in the air until election comes up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is the fighting and aggression over now, or is that still going on?
It's still going. Russia is the peacekeeper, so they have their military base in Artsakh in that disputed land. So Russia is trying to control that area. So they have their peacekeepers there, but the dispute continues because of our differences in terms of religion.
Mhm.
So what happens to the people that were living on that land? Do they have to be, are they displaced or
They had to be displaced, yes. So now there's a lot of need for those people because they just fled and they left their homes. And that's another part of Burbank for Armenia. We are constantly trying to see what programs there are that we can help families directly. If they need clothing, shoes, or sponsorship, those kind of things.
Mhm. Do you have family that's affected by it there?
My direct family is not, but we have family members that were living there. Now they have to be displaced. So they're in other region that is still Armenia.
And that's always a difficult thing because, me personally, growing up in Iran, Armenian Christian, growing up in a Muslim country, it was very different for my family. A lot of them fled here during the war between Iran and Iraq. My family was displaced. We had to live in India for 3 years because there was a family kind enough to sponsor us to live with them for 3 years. And that's a different world. That's a different third world country. I mean, the poverty is just, what you see here is nothing compared to what you see in India. And, but, it's one of those things where, it happens all across the world, and we live in this wonderful bubble, which is the United States. And we're so fortunate for what we have. We just can't forget that, and for us, it's, the reason we do what we do is because we know there's so much work and there's so much help we can provide the community. And that's what really drives us, because we know how horrible things can be, and anytime there's an opportunity for us to help somebody out, we definitely will.
I would like you have my phone number because I know some families who will need help.
Okay.
Happy to help.
Contact with you.
Absolutely.
Brandon, will you share it with us?
Yes. Yeah, I'll
Thank
share. Yeah. Is that okay, Silva and Baruch? I'll give them your contact info.
Thank
Okay.
you. And email too. Email is fine too. Thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you, everyone. You guys have been
Thank you
wonderful.
for being
You guys
on
have been
this call.
absolutely wonderful, by the way.
Thank you for taking time and for being with us today.
Of course.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for your work that you're doing and just getting started.
Yes.
Just getting started, yeah. We're still figuring it out.
Here we all are.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Everybody have a good week. Good to see
Thank
you.
you, Brandon.
Thank you. I'll see you
Thank you,
Wednesday.
First Christian Church.
Bye.
Yeah. for sure.
Everyone.
Bye.